Hello and welcome to Tools to Create a Better Life with myself, Glenyce Hughes. Thank you so much for being here. I am so incredibly grateful for you. This week we are talking about tools to use competition to your advantage. Yes, this is an invitation to a 10-month book club that I have starting June 1st, 2022. It is called Living the 10 Keys to Freedom. So the 10 Keys to Freedom, actually the 10 Keys to Total Freedom, is a book by Gary Douglas and Dane Heer from Access Consciousness. And it is literally 10 keys to total freedom. The title does not lie. It is so magical, and no competition is one of those keys. So I wanted to just explore it in this radio show, give you maybe a taste of what the 10-month book club will be like. Basically, what we do is we go through each chapter in the book club, and this is the first time I'm doing it this way. I've been doing book clubs for a couple of years now. They're amazing. And this time I am taking a chapter a month. Usually I do a chapter in a week. This book is like no other book, my sweet friends. This book is wowza. So I know, for me anyway, I will require way more time with each chapter and really truly to live that key. And then of course, as the months go on, the keys. Now I have been sharing the 10 keys to total freedom for 10 years because it's actually in the foundation manual. I've been talking about it and certainly using the tools to a certain degree, and I'm ready to go way, way, way deeper. Way, way, way deeper. In fact, I just finished up attending a 10-month book club on the 10 Keys to Freedom, and I'm not ready to be done yet, which is how this was all inspired. It's like, let's go further. So that invitation, you'll see a link above or below. If you don't see one, reach out to me. I will get you that link so you can look at it. Now, the reason that I'm actually doing this radio show in my office is because I've wrote some things down from the chapter of No Competition. So with this book and with many of the books in Access Consciousness, it's actually based off of a teleseries. So in 2012, yes, 10 years ago, Gary and Dane had a teleseries called The 10 Keys to Total Freedom, and then they made it into a book. And so what I do when I do a book club is I go through the teleseries, and then I go through the chapter, and then we get together and I just share bits and pieces, and then whatever questions that you might have or insights, awarenesses, whatever it is. So this is basically what I've done is I wrote down some things in the No Competition chapter. Now I'm just giving you a little tiny synopsis. There's going to be so much, my sweet friends. Honestly, a call a week for a month. So some months are 4 calls, some months are 5 calls, depending on that month, because that really is how much is required. And probably we could do a year a chapter. That just probably wouldn't be as fun. So anyway, what I want to talk about is some tidbits of competition and what competition is from the book and the teleseries. So competition. This is a shocking one. Anytime you need to be right or you're trying to be right, you're competing. When you're trying to win and not lose, you're competing. When you're getting upset and making the other person wrong, which every time we get upset, that's what we're doing competition. And here is a mind-blowing one. When we're doing conclusion, we're competing. Whew. Everything that just brought up. Will you destroy and uncreate it all times a godzillion? Right, wrong, good, bad, all 9, POD POC, shorts, boys, povads, and beyonds. Now, if you're not familiar, accessconsciousness.com, go check out all of the pieces. There's so much information. The thing I just said, right, wrong, good, bad, all 9, POD POC, shorts, boys, povads, and beyonds, that is the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement. You can go to theclearingstatement.com for more information about how it works, but basically it's like waving a magic wand. And all of the energies, all the stuff that was coming up as I was reading through what competition is, or when we're doing competition, all of that starts getting cleared, like waving a magic wand, and it works beautifully. And we've recently added the word POVADs, and that is an acronym for points of view that you're avoiding and defending, which is a whole other topic. I did a radio show a couple weeks. We'll link to it somewhere so you can check it out if you would like more information about avoiding and defending. In my 11 years playing with these amazing tools of access consciousness, the clearing statement has never been changed. In fact, it's been 14 years since it was changed. So this is such a magical topic and worth going to listen to that radio show. All right, so now you've got an idea of when you're competing. I know for me, the biggest one as I was reviewing this chapter really was when I needed to be right. And although it's something that I'm a million times better at, it's still something that I choose way too much. And the acknowledgement when I'm aware that I'm choosing it, that I'm actually competing, has allowed me to stop it in the moment that I acknowledge that. So for me, this is huge. Because having that extra tool just to acknowledge, and usually, I'll be honest, usually it's with regards to hubby. There's something I need to be right about. And as soon as I recognize that energy, I'm very familiar with the energy now. And now when I can go, oh, there's that energy. Would I like to compete with hubby? No. So then I can drop it easily. So that was one of the biggest for me personally, is really looking at that and going, you know what? If I need to be right, I'm competing. Crazy. Now, also from the chapter, Gary and Dane talk about what competition does, like when we're competing. 1, we're killing our creative capacities. 2, you're killing what you could receive in the world. 3, we're creating a lot of crap. 4, we're killing our business. 5, we're killing our future. And this was the big one for me. You can't be the contribution you be. Yeah. So again, let's go back to needing to be right with hubby. I can't be a contribution when I need to be right because I'm competing. Ooh. Everything that is what you destroy and uncreate at all times, the godzillion. Right, wrong, good, bad, all 9, POD, POC, shorts, boys, POVADs, and beyonds. Now, one of the things that they talk about in the chapter is that to be the antidote to competition is to actually ask a question. Shocking. I know, right? It's what we talk about all the time in Access. And it really is just being present with the energy. So whether you're the one who's doing competition or you're aware of competition, question is the thing that will change it. So let's say you're aware of competition. You could actually ask, what's going on here? How can I change this? How can I handle this? Now, if it's you that's doing the competition, then again, I mean, the tool of just recognizing that I'm killing being a contribution, I'm killing my business, I'm killing my life, I'm killing my creative capacities. That's a pretty big enough gift to be able to change it. And if it isn't, there's so many other tools that you can use. You could just really look at, okay, so what's actually going on here? Because when we compete, when we're doing competition, it's from the energy of being less than. We don't ever compete with people that we feel in a sense like the same as or on the same level as, where we feel like we're us. We don't compete in those situations. It's when we're feeling less than, when we feel like that person is greater than us or better than us, that's when we compete. Everything that just brought up, well, you destroy and uncreate at all times a godzillion. Right, wrong, good, bad, all 9, POD, POC, shorts, boys, POVADs, and beyonds. So that's also something to look at. For me personally, I had this, I often refer to it as a theme. It was a choice. I chose to feel left out a lot growing up. And then into my teens and certainly into my adult years, I continued to choose that. So I refer to it as a theme because it was a similar energy that I chose over and over and over. And that energy, me choosing left out, often matched the energy of less than, which then it was constant competition. However, I wasn't doing competition in the way that most people would think. Competition, often when we think of that, it's like fighting and forcing, and I'm going to show that I am good enough, and I am going to show that I am, a contribution, or that sort of stuff. That's not how I did it. I went, oh, poor me. Sucks to be me. They're better than me, and I'm nothing. Now, okay, maybe it wasn't as blatant as that, and it was very close. Energetically, it was. So I did that, and people would often say, well, that's not competition. It actually is. It's the same energy. It's just that it's not the fighting. It's not what we often identify as competition as. So in my family, I can remember growing up, and I have 2 older sisters. And then when I was 9, my parents had another baby and then another one right after that. And so 2 older and 2 younger. I can remember sitting at the dinner table, and my one sister had all these amazing stories about her day and what had went on and who did what. And everybody around the table was, very involved in her stories. And for a while, I would attempt to match that. I would attempt to come home with the stories, to be as interesting, to not feel left out, to all that stuff. And then I can actually remember stopping and actually starting to withdraw. Both of those are competition. I was competing when I was like, okay, what story can I tell? How can I get people to like me as much as her? I mean, it was insane. And whatever. And then also going, all right, you know what? They want to listen to her? Fine. I'll just withdraw. Same energy. And we don't often acknowledge it to be. And if you would have asked me back then, I would have told you I was not competing. I was superior. I was not even going to play that game. And I totally was. So you might even want to start acknowledging when you're competing. You could even ask, universe, show me where I'm competing. Just show me. Not so that you can make yourself wrong, so that you can start being aware that you have another choice. You don't have to compete. You can. There's nothing wrong with it. And we're going to talk shortly about the tools to use competition to your advantage. But it's not about making you wrong ever. The other thing that I have come up in a lot of my classes and such is where people will ask about competition, like people competing with them. And they'll say, so-and-so is competing with me in my business and trying to take my clients or stuff like that. And it's very interesting what Gary and Dane talk about in the book with regards to this. And let me read it to you. Gary says, saying this person is competing with me is not an awareness. It's a judgment. You can ask. Remember, the antidote is question. Ask, what am I doing or being to create this? What am I aware of that I'm not willing to have total awareness of? What am I creating or generating that's contributing to their feeling this way? Yeah. So you can totally use competition to your advantage in this case with those questions. And then you could look at what's required. And I remember years ago, I was traveling to another country to do some classes. I had hosts at that location. We were having our weekly check-in meeting, and they were telling me about a fellow certified facilitator who lived in that area that was doing some interesting things around the classes that we were going to have in that area. And at first they said, like, what should we do? How can we stop this? And we're matching that energy. And I was like, well, if we don't play with it, that's going to create greater. So let's acknowledge what's going on, but we don't need to play with it. We don't need to make that person wrong. We don't need to be right. Let's just let it be. And then afterwards on my own, I didn't use these specific questions, but I started looking at what is actually going on. Like if somebody's choosing that, and in this case, I knew this fellow CF, and it was an unusual choice from what I had experienced with her. So I just got curious, like what's going on that somebody would choose this? And I recognized quite quickly that that person had really built up that area of where she lived with, interest in access consciousness with the classes. There was a lot of people who'd been to classes that knew about it because of what she had chosen for months and years. And I was like, wow, that is phenomenal. So I reached out to her and I just said, I need to thank you so much for what you've done in that area to really allow the interest to be there. You've done all the hard work, and now I'm just so grateful. And it was true. I wasn't making it up. It wasn't like, oh, well, how can I get her? It wasn't. It was truly like, once I acknowledged it, I was like, wow, I never looked at it like that before. So I just shared that with her, and it changed everything. And that's basically what, the questions that Gary's suggesting, that's basically what it is. Like, what was I doing that was creating that? Well, I wasn't acknowledging what she had done in that area to really exponentialize the information about access. I didn't have to go in and start, educating people about access consciousness. She'd done that. And it was such a huge space and such a huge awareness for me also that I continued to do that. When I would get invited to areas where there was somebody who had done that in that area, I would reach out to them and I would just say, thank you so much for what you've done here. Because it is huge for somebody to do that. I'm so grateful. So really looking at that, if you are a person who's saying, oh, this person's competing with me, take a moment. What's actually going on? Now, we're not saying at all that you're wrong or that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. I wasn't wrong to say yes to the invitation to go facilitate classes there. And that whole situation gave me so much awareness. So if you looked at, let's say it's one person that's competing, and you got really spacious and present with that, what could you actually create? You might never contact that person. In my situation, it was super light to do so. It made a lot of sense to do so. And in your situation, it might not, and it might give you more information. Might give you way more information to really get a sense of that. I've heard of other people too that have had a similar where they're really aware of somebody competing, and so they just follow the energy and they invite that person to co-facilitate with them. Yeah. Now, again, you've got to follow what you know. You've got to ask questions. It might never make sense for you, but just to start being aware of it. Because what could we create if we drop those barriers? And to me, that's what I do when I'm competing is I put up the barriers. And again, for me, a lot of it's like, well, I'm less than, and I'm nothing. And all the stories that I used to tell myself, I'm so grateful that I would say 95% of the time, that's not in my world anymore. I can certainly be aware of it, but to play with it as though it's mine like I used to, it's very, very different. How does it get any more magical than that? Yes. So really with that, if you're feeling it from someone else, then use those questions. Really check in what else is going on and what can you be and do different to change it. Now, the generative competition you might have heard us talk about before is actually where we start out creating. And it's such a simple question. I've got on my reminder app. It reminds me every morning at 6 a.m. to ask, what energy, space, consciousness, choice, magic, miracles, mysteries, and possibilities can me and my body be to out-create myself for all eternity? Anything that doesn't allow that to show up as if by magic, I destroy and uncreate it all. right, wrong, good, bad, all 9, POD POC, shorts, boys, povads, and beyonds. Ask every day to outcreate you. Now, the other thing that I ask is I ask my business to outcreate itself. And then you can also ask to outcreate other people. That's not competition. That's what we call leapfrogging. So let's say somebody sees a class that I'm offering, and let's say it's a one-day class on changing your points of views about money. And then somebody sees that and they go, whoa, that's really cool. What if I offered it as a 3-day class and I added in stuff about business and magic, let's say? Now, some people could call that competition, and it could be, the person could be doing it from, oh, I need to be better than her. It could be. But if you're truly doing it from the spaciousness of you, from the leapfrogging, it's just looking at something going, wow, here's how I could change that. Here's how I could do that different. That feels super fun. And then actually just taking action and doing it. So it's something that's been talked about with the certified facilitators in Access Consciousness that I just love is leapfrogging. And if I see somebody doing something similar to me, I don't get offended. I actually celebrate because they've taken little bits of pieces of the energy of the creation and then went whoosh and leapfrogged over me. And that is so magical. And I have done it. I don't mean just other people. Like, honestly, it's the way. And if we break it all the way down, we do that with the tools of Access Consciousness. Every video that I've ever done, every class that I've ever done using the tools, everything that I've ever done where I shared the tools, I was out creating something. We could go all the way back to Gary Douglas, who was the founder. So what if it's not wrong, and what if it's not bad? Yeah, right, wrong, good, bad, all 9, POD POC, shorts, boys, povads, and beyonds. Because that's another thing that I hear a lot is they go, oh no, the so-and-so is offering a bars class, so I can't. What? If we only had one bars facilitator in the world, that would be ridiculous. If we only had one bars facilitator in the city or town that you lived in, that would be ridiculous. I used to live in a town called Vermilion, Alberta, population about 5,000, and I think that included surrounding area. It was a fairly small town. We must have had 50 hairdressers and about 50 liquor stores. Okay, that might be a bit of a stretch with the liquor stores, but there was a lot. And all of them were busy. Hairdressers and liquor stores. Because every one of us is looking for a certain energy. Whether we know that or not, it doesn't matter. That's we're looking for an energy. So if you're willing to recognize that you being you is going to be different than the bars facilitator down the road, or the certified facilitator, or the car salesperson, or the Amazon seller, whatever it is that you do, then you can actually, again, going back to all this information, you can be the contribution that you truly be. Because you're not playing less than, you're not going, oh, well, they know more than me, or they sell more than me, or they have more followers than me, or like, all of that is ridiculous competition, making you less than, making sure that you're going to do competition where you could just look at, okay, what would be fun for me? What would I like to do? What would create greater here? So you go back into question and have so much more of you in whatever it is that you're offering. Now, I'm talking about it kind of from competition from a business space, but as I talked about with my family, I competed with my siblings, I've competed with my parents, I compete with Rodney, which is hubby. Not a lot of people know that. His real name is Rodney. I've started calling him hubby, which seems like forever ago, and so often I'll get the question of, is that his real name? It's not. It's Rodney, but I still refer to him as hubby because that's fun for me. Anyway, so we compete in all sorts of areas and all sorts of ways, and that's why even asking, universe, show me where I'm competing. Because sometimes it might be just about turning it. It might be just turning it from competing to generative competition, which again is that out-creating. So let's say you're a bars facilitator and you are seeing on social media somebody who had 50 people in their class. And you get really excited by that. You could ask, what would it take to out-create that class? What you're asking is, what would it take for me to choose to be more of me than that person was willing to be of them when they created that class? That's what out-creation is. You're asking to be more of you. And so I will often do that. When I see something that just lights me up that somebody else has chose, what would it take to out-create that? It's not about what would it take to be better than them, what would it take to be more successful than them. That's all competition and not going to feel yummy. What would it take to out-create them? What would it take to be more of me than they were willing to be of them in that moment? That's where the magic is, my sweet friends. As I mentioned, this is an invitation to the book club, 10 months, deep dive, living the 10 keys to total freedom. You will get weekly calls with me where you can ask questions. We'll go through the book. I'll share bits and pieces from the teleseries that maybe wasn't included in the book. There will also be a personal clearing loop for me each month based on that month of whatever the key is that month. So that will be there. And you will also get a PDF about living the tools from that chapter. So it'll be basically just suggestions on how to use the tools that they talk about in the book, different ideas and ways that you can actually live them in your life and your living. So if that sounds fun, find the link. If you don't see it, let me know and I will get it for you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. And I wonder what our lives and our living would be like if we were willing to use competition to our advantage, as if by magic.